Well, let's jump in with the old Honda CL500. That was out on that just before you, wasn't I? So I flew out to, oh my gosh, I think it was Seville. Yeah, it was Seville. Yeah, we spent a day riding the new Honda CL500. Just as I arrived back at Stansted Airport, I believe you were flying out for the Ducati trip.
Yeah, roughly the same sort of time frame.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we called it Scrambler Week, you know? Anyway, it was good, actually. It's not a bike that I'd necessarily say would be top of my list straight away. You know, if I was going to buy a Scrambler, I'd be looking at maybe something a little bit bigger. But actually, with a day on that bike, you start to appreciate it for what it is, which is quite an affordable little frugal bike that can be pretty good fun. Main competitor for this, mate, and this is kind of what I focused on in my review, is the Scram 411, which we were both on the launch of, the Royal Enfield.
Yes.
Last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So let's start off by recapping your thoughts on that bike.
Well, on the Scram 411, we didn't get to take it off-road. We had like a gravel car park where we kind of pulled into, and that was literally the only place we could have done. Obviously, we took the Hemi off-road not long after that. So the same sort of base, if you like. So you can get a rough idea of what it might be like off-road, although obviously different proportions. As a town bike, as a city bike, it was great fun. It is a little bit gutless. My guess would be that the Honda would be a little punchier, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many bikes in this sort of segment of the market, like mid to small capacity, scramblery, urban / I don't know what you call it, commuter, a little bit of off-road. Like, it is a bit niche, isn't it? It does all those things.
Yeah.
And there isn't really much competition apart from that bike. There is the baby Triumph Scrambler coming at some point in the next year, I'd guess, where they're partnering with Bajaj and building it out in India. But at the moment, literally, in the 400 to 500cc Scrambler segment, is these two bikes. And I'd wholeheartedly agree. The Scram 411, it probably is better off-road. It's jacked up quite a lot more than the Honda, which has about 150 mil of ground clearance. You got about 200 on the Enfield, which is pretty good. But yeah, I came away from the Scram 411 road riding, which was the majority of the day, thinking I just need a little bit more punch than 20 horsepower for what is a relatively weighty bike.
And I think that's the road stuff though, isn't it? Right. So if you were to take that thing off road, as we found with the Himalayan, it's actually not bad. It's actually, you don't really need much more than that in most situations, because you can still kick out the rear end on it if you want to.
Well, this is it. It's like a long single with lots of low down grunty torque. And I think the whole point of that, there was actually recently a Fortnite video with the Scram 411 where he took it across some dunes and stuff. And I guess a lot of what he was saying in that video is it'll keep chugging this engine, really low in the revs, because that's how it's designed. That's what it's made for, which is great if you're doing that. Or if you're riding, maybe it could be more designed for the Indian market, depending on the sort of riding you're doing out there.
Sure.
I mean, you're more likely to encounter off-roady type stuff perhaps than you are in the UK.
Yeah.
But I personally think most of these bikes in this market are really going to be ridden on the road. I don't think I've ridden many bikes where you have, apart from like 125s, but it's anything above 400cc that you twist the throttle and you're expecting something to happen and it just doesn't.
Yeah, that's kind of like you naturally sort of canter forward ever so slightly on any other bike, right? Where you brace for it, it's coming. And on that one, you lean forward and you're like, and
you end up falling over.
Yeah, it's sort of more obvious. It's almost like, when you walk up an escalator and it's turned off.
Yeah.
And your brain just can't compute because it's expecting them to move. And it just feels wrong. They're technically steps, but they don't feel like steps. It's the same sort of thing where you lean forward and you're like, oh, nothing's happening.
Yeah, to the point where I think, like, if you're on a quick moving road, a road or something, I'd be a little bit anxious about riding that bike. It doesn't quite have the pluck to pick the speed up quickly. Yeah, especially at those sort of more serious speeds. So yeah, as you correctly presume, the CL500 from Honda, it's got the parallel twin that you'll also find in the CB500F, the CB500X, the Rebel 500.
Yeah.
So it's more like 40 odd horsepower. You have to wind it up a little bit, get it revving, but that's what it does a lot better.
The CB500X then as well?
Have I ridden it?
Yeah, have you ridden that one?
Yeah, it's one of those random videos that gets like hundreds of thousands. I wasn't on a launch; it was in the middle of winter, but for some reason, it's just such a popular series of bikes. So yeah, that did really well.
I thought I'd seen that pop on your channel, and to me, I mean, well, you'll know because you're on the launch, I'm sure, and they mentioned it. But is it essentially a naked CB500X, or what's the sort of difference between the two of them?
Good question. No, I would say. That is a good question. It's lower, almost certainly. Yeah. It's like 790mm in the seat, the Scrambler. Whereas I think the CB500X is like a little bit up above that. Like 820, 830 kind of rings a bell for that bike, but I could have completely made that up. If you did want to off-road, probably buy something else anyway. But if you had your heart set on a 500 Honda, for whatever reason, you know, a lot of people want to be near their dealer and they've got a certain price range and maybe, you know, Honda brand does it for them. Then the CB500X is probably more versatile in that respect. And you get more serious suspension and brakes and you got a much bigger tank. I think it's 17 liters on that bike, whereas it's more like 12 maybe on the Scrambler. It's like a little one.
Yeah, it makes sense. It would be smaller and slimmer, obviously, for the look.
More wind protection as well. So it can tour, it can do a bit of off-road. It is basically like a baby adventure bike on a budget. The Scram is, or the CL500 is, well, actually the front frame, like the main part of the frame is the same as the Rebel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the engine and frame are the same as the Rebel 500.
Because that I've ridden, and I like that bike a lot. It was really good fun.
It's just, I've sat on one and I'm like, this is a little too low for me. It's 690mm in the seat.
Yeah.
So if you're really anxious about being a new rider and being able to get both feet down, I can see why that appeals. Also, there aren't that many small cruisers. So if you do want that riding position, but I would say for me, probably I'd discredit it. Like if I had a short list, that would probably be out eventually just for being that low.
Yeah, I think it's a special case, that one, because it's I can fully see the application for it. Like if you want a little commuter and you want something the same as well, basically it's origins, like the original Rebel. Yeah, it's the point was that it's this tiny little toy thing that you can just hop on and just pop out on, and it's not a very serious bike, you know, and definitely just for short trips and commuting, or like you say, if you're a new rider or if you're a little bit more nervous getting on a bike, then it's very approachable.
Yes, that's it. But I think if you want something that feels more regular, then this is, so the way they've done it is put a different swing arm, different wheels, and a different subframe as well. So longer, much higher up. They made it stronger as well. So it's single seat, isn't it? The Rebel.
Yes.
They made it stronger so you can off-road, take a passenger, maybe put some luggage on as well. So like thicker pipes to do that. So yeah, it's kind of most similar. It's like the Rebel, right? But with the wheels off the CB500.
So it's jacked up, yeah. Because the other thing on the Rebel is it's got these little, I think it's 16-inch wheels.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Yeah, tiny little thing. Yeah,
with like the balloon tires on it. Yeah. So it's a 19 front and 17 rear. Okay. So yeah, all round. Like not just the power levels, but also the handling on the Scram. And I found that with the Himalayan as well, like pretty bad. Like the brakes are bad. Like everything about it, generally I would say is like very budget. Bad brakes, bad suspension, cheap tires. Like the big spoke wheels feel kind of like washy. It's a little bit better on the Scram because it's a bit smaller. The build quality is not that great on it either. Like I liked it. It's better than the Himalayan, the Scram, because it's more comfortable and it's got that more agile, smaller front wheel. I think it's a 19 as well. But I just came away from riding this Honda thinking like in almost every regard, this is, you know, faster, better engine, better build, better brakes, better tires, probably better suspension as well. Showa stuff, more comfy.
Yeah. It looks that way to me. I think the other one that I compare it to, or in my head maybe, is the Benelli. And I've forgotten the name of it, but I'm going to say limoncello. It's not.
It could be.
There's a Benelli. Hold on, it's a 500.
It's Leoncino, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was being facetious. I was sorry, Benelli. Yeah, so that one I think as well in my head is one that I would maybe throw in contention with.
That's
like
very close,
CL
actually. Yeah, that's very close. It is same price pretty much as the. As the Honda. I don't know, at that price, you'd have to really want that Benelli. I think I'd probably be going for the Honda TBH.
Yeah. So I'd do the same thing, I think. It's a known quantity, a known entity, isn't it, really? With that
exactly.
One.
Whereas I'm not
you go in a little bit into the
there.
unknown with the Benelli, yeah.
The only drawbacks, I suppose, with the Honda, and I'm still saying versus the Scram, because like the reason I suppose I'm talking about the Enfield so much is because they sell so well in the UK here, whereas the Benellis, they might sell a few, but like the Royal Enfield bikes are always in the top 10 best-selling, non-scooter bikes in the UK. The only sort of downside, well, there's two downsides perhaps of the Honda. Number one be the price. It is like $1,000 more. I think you can, or just over $1,000. So the Scram 411, you can get it for like 4,850 or something like that. So it's under $5,000. Sure. 5,999 for the Honda. So you got to figure out whether you think the improvement in ride is worth it. The other one's the looks though, which, I mean, have you seen it, the CL500?
Yeah, I have. I didn't see it before I saw your Instagram post. I hadn't seen it with all the fairing on it, the extra little plastic bits on the front. Handguards and headlight cover, right? But
without that, without the accessories, it really does look like, I just said it rides like a Rebel 500, but with bigger wheels.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like as well.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, since you said it, I have to say, even like the tank shape actually, and probably the same size. It's probably exactly the same.
Yeah.
But very, very similar.
I'm not sure if it is. Let's have a look, actually.
It's probably not the exact same, but it's very, very similar. And if they've changed anything, it's minimal on that. But I don't know. I quite like the looks of it, I think. I don't know which one between the two of them I mean, Royal Enfield's gone a little bit more...
It is a slightly different, I've got to say, it's slightly different tank shape. It's a little bit more flattened off. Yes, it is Rebel-esque. Well, just to recap on the accessories we just mentioned. So I specifically picked a bike that had a high front mudguard, a fly screen, and handguards to make it look a little bit more interesting. Like they line all the bikes up. Some are accessorized, some not. And I just kind of got in there quick and was like, can you put me on one that looks cool? But the interesting thing about them is they're white. Yeah, they're not body matched. And that's a criticism I've seen in the comments of the pictures that I've posted, where people are like, why is it white? But I think that's like a period detail, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like it is. It seems like it would be.
Or is it cheaping out?
It also looks like it's literally just like, when you buy like fairings for old bikes, like if you get like an old VFR 400 or something like that, and you buy you can buy the fairings. Yes. Just like without anything on them, so then you have to get the detail or paint it or whatever you need to do. But they look like that. They look like they're unfinished. Yes. Like they've just been injection molded and then shipped off, and then they're like, you deal with it, you paint it, whatever you want.
But stuff like the Fantic Caballero, that's another affordable little scrambler. They come with a white high front mudguard, and I think that's intended to be like but I get what you're saying. I think it would have looked a bit, I don't think it would have looked that good color match. Maybe if they made them black, then they would suit all of the bikes.
Well, I was going to say probably black I would go for. But the thing is, I guess it's because do you have the military green one?
Yes.
Yeah, or whatever they've called that green anyway. But there was, I think just because it is quite a contrast between those two. Whereas if you look at the older kind of dirt bikes and stuff like that, and I guess sort of scramblers, I feel like the white accessories and fairing matched more with the color schemes they had at the time, which were probably lighter colors than like a dark green.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
See, it is quite a contrast where it's a little bit of a mismatch between the two, even if it is accurate.
So you were saying out of the Scram 411 and the CL500, which do you think is the more aesthetically acceptable motorcycle?
Well, I personally think I like the look of the Honda more. There's something about its kind of proportions that I think just sort of speaks to me. But I do like the eye-catching kind of color schemes and graphics they've gone for in the Royal Enfield. I think actually they've done a really good job of making it look that kind of surfery vibe. I think it's literally just like the silhouette, the sort of shape of it, the main shape of it, I think I prefer on the Honda.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough call, isn't it? I would say that the Enfield it looks a bit more properly retro, old school, but just with like a popping paint job. Yeah. Whereas they showed us some of the styling cues actually from the old CL Hondas that they carried over to this one. So there is some attention to detail in sort of in terms of referencing older models in order to bring out that heritage and retro nature. But it's still got that modern design language, the modern Honda look with things like the 4 LEDs in the headlight, which you'll get on the Rebel as well.
Yeah.
And just the general shapes of it. And it's sort of halfway between. It looks like a Honda rather than looking like, a really good baby retro bike or something like that, if you know what I mean.
I don't know, it looks sort of fat compared, but like, when you look at like old, even when it comes to like modern cars and stuff, when they take off a classic line of theirs and they just reinvent it and bring it out again, they always look a bit bloated compared to just, if you talk like 60s design language in terms of cars and bikes, this just looked a little bit cleaner. I don't know what it was, but I think Ross from the Bike Shed, when I was there for the longest time, had a Honda CL. I can't remember what size it was, but that was in our shop for ages. We just got to stare at that for a long while. It was this dark blue one. I don't know if you ever saw it, but he'd sort of, he customized it, but not a lot. It's just he sort of cleaned it up a little bit. And that thing was gorgeous compared to, like I say, sort of modern bikes a little bit.
Yeah, realistically, like they couldn't have done a great deal more, I think, with this.
No.
Yeah, within that sort of platform and the Rebel sort of vibe and whatever. In the interest of keeping it affordable and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for me, the kind of conclusion was that it's a better road bike, which is where majority of people are going to ride. So if you like the looks and you've got the extra grand, almost certainly go for the Honda. Like, I had fun on it, mate. Honestly, sending it on some Spanish twisty roads. It was a lot more fun than I expected. And they know how to make these little bikes handle nicely. The CB500X is great on the road. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a great little purchase. The only other thing is the Fantic Caballero. That's more off-road biased. Have you ridden one or?
No, I haven't, no.
It's more like a dirt bike with some, because that's what Fantic really make, is like enduro bikes and stuff like that. So it's a big single. It feels taller. It feels lighter. And so for off-roading and still having the retro looks, it's a great choice. But when you ride it on the road, it feels like riding a dirt bike on the road, which is fine. But if most of your riding is on the road, then after a while, you're like, I want something a little more refined. And the Honda ticks that box. So all in all, I thought it was a good effort from Honda. I'll see how it does in terms of sales, but I was quite impressed with it. The Triumph could mix it up a little bit, though. Yeah,
potentially, I would say so.
A little bargain, baby Bonneville. Let's see how good that one is. But
interesting to see, how good it is and what sort of price it comes in at, definitely.
Yes. Yeah, it's a bit unknown. It's the first bike they'll launch in partnership with Bajaj. So who knows where that's going to come in, whether they'll still charge a bit of a premium for the Triumph brand, despite making it out in India, or whether it'll genuinely be, more affordable. We'll see.